Hi guys, Max here, and the situation in Ukraine has just deteriorated. It's gotten worse, and despite the fact that everyone else in the world seems to be surprised by this, I'm not. And if you watched my last video on Ukraine, then you shouldn't be surprised by what's just happened either. Today we're going to very quickly cover exactly what just happened, what this new development is, why Russia has gone this direction, and what we should expect in the future as well. Now, the basic news here is that Russia is going to keep their troops on the Ukrainian border for longer than they had been claiming they would in the past. The idea here, what Russia had been telling the world, was that they had maintained the troops on the Ukrainian border and they'd done it purely for military exercises with Belarus, training, military drills and stuff like that. Literally just a few days ago now, Russia came out and they said that they had already started to withdraw their troops. Now, that coming from Russia, not a lot of people believed those words, and that was right to do so apparently. They said that they had started sending them back to their permanent bases, and the markets liked this news. They jumped a little bit on it, and we actually had a green day in an otherwise sea of red. The problem though was that the West and Ukraine came out almost immediately after, and they said that they had seen no evidence of Russia withdrawing their troops. There are of course satellites everywhere. There is huge amounts of information and documentation around right now because this is the 21st century, so if these troops had been withdrawing, you can bet your bottom dollar that people would have noticed. To be perfectly honest here, you'd have to be just a little bit naive to believe Russia's line when they said that all these troops built up had been purely for military exercises with Belarus. Google a map of Russian troop movements and their locations today and where they've been moving them to, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. The vast majority of these 190,000 Russian troops are not in Belarus or even anywhere near it. They're also east of Ukraine and south in Crimea as well. That's where the build-up has been taking place. Now, the actual development that we're talking about today is that Russia is now claiming their troops will stay longer than they had originally planned, that they're not leaving their new positions. Now, literally just earlier in the week, I said that Russian troops will never leave Belarus in particular, and this is exactly what we're seeing right now. Russian troops in the country exemplifies Russian influence in Belarus. It keeps Belarus on side no matter what, ensures that they are a strong ally and a permanent member of CTSO no matter what happens in the future. Prior to this, there had been no permanent Russian forces or military bases in Belarus, but that has now changed, and these troops in particular will never leave. So why has Russia actually made this announcement that their troops are going to be staying for longer than they had originally planned? Well, they said it's because of increased intensity in the fighting in the Donbass region of Ukraine, over in East Ukraine, where a mini civil war has been waging for about 8 years now. Now again, the other day we spoke about the supposed shelling in that region and how it could either be Ukraine escalating the conflict or Russia creating a false flag attempt, and I said then, and I still maintain, that we don't know which is the truth, but it doesn't actually matter what the truth is, which side is lying or which isn't, because all that actually matters is the result. Now, TASS News is the source for the Russian argument here, and to be honest, it's hardly reputable. It's owned entirely by the Russian state, and it's really only beaten in propaganda by China's state-owned media like the Global Times. Nonetheless, the result of this is that Russia is using the escalation in Donbass to maintain their troop positions, claiming that the troops are basically on standby should the conflict and the violence in Donbass get worse. Now, to be perfectly honest, and I know I'm going to annoy people when I say this does seem a bit like the false flag that the US and NATO have been warning us about for a couple weeks now. I personally can't see any reason for Ukrainian forces to actually escalate the conflict in Donbass right now. They are trying to de-escalate almost everything here, so Russia being the instigator here seems very likely as well. Again though, I want to reiterate, it doesn't really matter who's at fault. It doesn't matter if the Ukrainians really did exemplify their fighting in this region, or if Russia's just lying about it, or if they even created the violence themselves. The important thing here is the result, and that is that Russian troops are still sitting on the Ukrainian border and they're not leaving anytime soon. Now again, earlier in the week I said very clearly that Russia will seek to prolong this crisis for as long as possible because it is serving their aims. It is now the 20th of February and Russia was supposed to withdraw their troops today, or at least start, but the crisis and the tensions and destabilization of the West is the direct aim of Russia, and it's going very well for them, so they will obviously try to extend this process, and that is what we're seeing right now. Now, if you haven't seen my previous video on Ukraine, please go and watch it because it explains everything that just happened in really good detail, and it explains that the Ukraine crisis is causing chaos in the West, that countries are arguing with each other. It explains that citizens of each country are arguing with each other as well. Politicians are having to put off domestic agendas to tackle this crisis. Gas and oil prices are soaring higher and causing inflation, which is already awful in pretty much every Western country, to get worse. Financial markets are falling, and the main reason for the awful week that stocks just had was the fears about the situation in Ukraine. In short, right now, Russia is winning. They are achieving their goals of destabilizing the West, so they will keep doing what they're doing. They will prolong this crisis for as long as possible. They will keep oil and gas prices high for as long as possible and maximize their revenue from that. And as long as Russia don't actually invade Ukraine, they won't get sanctioned either. They won't really have any real consequences, so why on earth would they stop? Well, they won't. Until you, me, and everyone else watching this situation recognize that the true aim of Russia in Ukraine is destabilization of the West, then you will keep getting surprised. We need to accept that that is their #1 priority, and then suddenly everything will start to make perfect sense to you. Of course, now I feel the need to mention the one huge caveat here, that the real tragedy in this crisis is that the Ukrainian people should be put first here, but they're not being put first by any party present. We should care first and foremost about the civilians on the ground in Ukraine. Their right to self-determination is inalienable and it's innate, and their wishes should come first, not Russian wishes, not American wishes or European wishes either, but that's obviously never going to happen. What should we expect for the future? Well, we should expect this crisis to continue, for it to prolong. We should expect escalations to happen at the worst possible time by Russia to maximize their influence. Maybe when we have a green day in the markets, when investor sentiment rises, we should expect an escalation to turn it all around again. Maybe we should be looking for an escalation to happen when oil prices dip to keep them high and to keep the revenue for the Russian state high as well. With this information, we can invest or not invest accordingly, and personally, I'm not buying much right now, except for some allocation to gold that I've been building over the last couple of months. I'm mostly just holding cash because I fully expect asset prices to continue to fall because of Ukraine and Russia and that entire situation, yes, but also because of the inflation and monetary tightening situation as well in the West, and I think things will get worse, to be honest. Now that is it for the day, guys. If you enjoyed this video, then leave a like and a comment to bless the YouTube algorithm. If you want more content like this, then check out our Patreon and join our community of investors. You get access to our Discord, loads of exclusive content like insight into my portfolio and buy and sell alerts for all my own investments. There's a link in the description to masterworks.io, a site that allows you to buy fractional shares of art from world famous artists like Banksy, which can be a great way to diversify your portfolio with non-market correlated assets. It's completely free to sign up, you don't have to buy anything, you don't have to hand over any card information, so if that sounds interesting, then make sure to check it out. There's also a link in the description to BlockFi, which will give you up to $250 in free Bitcoin when you use it. You can also get 9% interest on stablecoins like USDC, which is a far higher rate than you get from any savings account these days. Just make sure not to use Tether. Thank you all for the support, thanks for watching, stay stoic, until next time.